It's the TCTV training show. The TCTV training show. They're learning how to shoot and learning how to light, learning how to mic and edit right. These are TCTV's finest in training, doing their best with focusing and framing. It's the TCTV training show. The TCTV training show. You're watching TCTV. It's the training show. The TCTV training show. They will get better.
Okay, well, thanks. I want to thank the folks who are here, and I want to thank the folks who will be arriving but aren't here yet. I've been producing and hosting the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation's TCTV program since February of '87. It's the longest running series on TCTV. And in fact, when we did our first few programs, TCTV did not have a studio, so everything was a field shoot, and our volunteer director would have to borrow TCTV's equipment, and I'd have to schedule somebody who had a huge living room where we could set up lights and cameras and a boom mic like this and so forth, and we made it work. And then they got the studio, and we've been doing this now for 28 years. Almost all of the programs that we do are on our interview programs in our series, but we've done some other things as well. We've set up this space and TCTV's previous studio on Limited Lane for dramatic presentations and for other special events. We've done a number of things. But the workshop here today is about how to produce TCTV programs. And there will be a special emphasis on interview programs, but not that much on interview specifically. And we can talk more when we finish at 1 o'clock. I want to just go around and see if we can say our names, and there may be other people joining us afterwards. I'm Glenn Anderson.
Rosalind Jenkins.
Misty Glue.
Lori Fordham.
Sally Papalolo.
Eve Papalolo.
Okay, great. Good to have you here. I'm just wondering what experience we have in the way of TV production. How many of us have experience with TV stations or film production apart from TCTV? Anybody have prior? Okay, so one. How many of us want to produce programs that will be aired on TCTV? Okay, so basically there are a number of things that the producer needs to do. I think of it also as the producer just needs to do whatever it takes to make the thing happen. So sometimes I've had to give a ride to a crew member who suddenly had no transportation. Who knows? I also bring refreshments. That's sort of a common thing, is you want to have some refreshments to show appreciation for the crew and the guests. So that's a function. So you find the topics and the people, be well organized, make logistical arrangements, be familiar with the equipment and what the equipment can do. I think you said and options. Recruit and coordinate the crew, produce the outline for the format, do whatever it takes to make it happen, and provide some refreshments. And there's more to it, but the basic thing is the producer is the person who's responsible. And then if the producer wants to delegate to, say, the person who's directing in the control room, if you have a different director, then you can empower that person and make sure that person knows what they need to do. So when I when I produce the program, I always tell our technical director that person is free to assign the other volunteer crew members to whatever function they'd be good at. And I may have some recommendations, but the decision goes with the technical director, because that's the person who's going to be switching and stuff. And I've got, when we do the actual production, I'm largely preoccupied with getting the guests ready, and that way the director can work with the technical people on the technical matters. For recruiting the topics and the people, I'll work with them with a combination of phones and emails to make sure that we're shaping up the content, and I'll mention that later on in the workshop here, and that they're committed to the time, the date, time, place. I have a description of how to drive to TCTV from any direction from the freeways, and then I just have that as a document that I'll attach to an email and send it to each guest and say, here's the driving directions, and if you have car trouble on the way or something, here's the phone number for the front desk, 956-3100. So if you have a flat tire, call us and we'll come out and pick you up and bring you in, or if you just can't come at the last minute, at least we know. So I want to make sure that they have that done. Working the phone for the crew, I'll have the phone and the email for the crew, and I'll contact the crew early by email, and we have the same people on crew or the same people that we invite to serve on the crew, and they sometimes they'll email back and say, gee, I can't make it this time, I have something else going on, but keep me on the list for the future, which of course I do. So I'll get some responses by email. I also have the phone list for the crew, so I'll call each person and say, hey, we're going to tape, I usually do that like a week and a half ahead of time, and they can do that. And then like we tape on a Thursday night, and so usually like on a Monday or Tuesday, I'll phone with another reminder and send out another email reminder. So remember, we're taping this Thursday night, and make sure that everybody knows, the crew and the guests all know what time to arrive. And I emphasize sharp, because I don't want to have the crew rolling in late, and then when the guests are ready, they have to sit around while the crew is still catching up. So I want to make sure the crew is there on time. I also want to make sure the guests are there on time, because if the guests are on time and ready, then the crew is ready, then we can go ahead and do this. I don't want to have, I don't want to inconvenience the crew by having, the crew ready and the guests are dragging in late and not yet prepared. So I want everybody there on time. And so working the email and the phone is good stuff. But if you're going to produce a TV program, you've got to have some reason why you're going to do this. So why might you want to produce a TCTV program? Yeah.
I want to tell a story.
Tell a story, okay. Why else?
Political interest?
Okay. Why else? Huh?
Education program.
Okay. Okay. Other reasons?
Entertainment.
Huh?
Entertainment.
Entertainment?
Public awareness?
Okay.
Document for future, I don't know exactly how to say it, but saving.
Historical preservation?
Okay. So there's a range of things that we've got, and these are different, and some of these are overlapping, and that's fine. So there are a lot of reasons for doing this, and it's helpful if your guests understand what they want to accomplish, so that we can focus the content of the interview or whatever it is on doing that well. Let's see. Okay, when you're preparing to produce your programs, what are some steps you can do to make sure that your program actually does what you want it to do? So you have some idea in mind, I want to educate the people, or you want to entertain, or you want to create a record for the future, or whatever it may be. What are some reasons or some ways that we can accomplish these? So if you're going to tell a story, or if you're going to achieve some political or whatever. This is number 3. It's respect your crew, your talent, and yourself. Be well organized, plan ahead, create a friendly and welcoming opportunity for everybody when preparing for the production and for the actual production and post-production work, and list some examples of how you might do these things. So how can you respect your crew and your guests, your talent, if you have performers or whatever, and yourself? What are some ways of protecting yourself? I listed some general things here, but give me some examples.
Well, you had mentioned earlier, be on time in
Okay.
terms of the expectations of both guests and crew.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll list meet expectations. Also, and not just on time, but you know, the guests or your talent, there's a reason why they're coming to perform or they're coming to share information. They have some expectations. We want to make sure that we satisfy them. So I really want to meet the needs of our guests on the program. I want this to be a satisfying experience for them that they will appreciate. And often, if it's people who are working with a nonprofit organization, we'll provide a link so they can link from their website to the show. So they've got their website, tell us about the issues that they work on. They say, if you want to see a TV program about this, here's the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation's TV interview on this from whatever month and year, and click this link, and it'll come to through our Olympia FOR website. The crew also has expectations. What expectations might the crew have? Why would somebody volunteer to serve on your crew?
Crew wanted to learn. And so I really opened the door for them to do a lot of things kind of the way they wanted to, even when sometimes it wasn't what I wanted to do, because then we could try out different ideas. And the net was everybody wanted to build some skills so that the next time they come in the studio, they're more able to generate the result they wanted.
Yeah, so people volunteer for the crew because they want to learn, they want to develop the skills, and so how are some ways to do that? How are some ways that you can help crew members learn and develop skills?
Well, in our case, really was about giving them everything that they needed to be able to do what they thought would generate a good result.
Yeah, after each production, I like to ask each crew member, how did this go? Did everything go okay from your standpoint, or is there something that we could do better? And a couple months ago, a crew member on this new equipment, the new cameras, didn't know how to, there was something he was trying to do, but he didn't know how to do it. And so I said, well, let's have a TCTV staff person show us how to do that thing that you didn't know how to do during the production. And so we brought somebody over and they showed the particular control. Okay, now we all know. And so if there's something that can be done better, find out how it went, and then if you need to find out how to fix the problem, how to do it right, you know, it's a learning opportunity. Other ways to respect the crew, the talent, and yourself?
Now, I learned something, Glenn. Let it do what it's going to do. Because I talk with each interview subject at least twice, in some cases 3 times. I emailed the questions I was going to ask. I asked them, what would you like me to ask you that's not on this list? You tell me and I'll ask it so you can get out what you want. We reviewed all of that together. And then when the lights came on and the camera came on, they forgot about all of it. And just said or did, you know, whatever they wanted to do that they felt they could do at that moment. And that was just fine.
So we do that. One of the other things to help people feel comfortable is, for the guests, is I always tell people in advance, I find out from them what they want to talk about, and then I design questions to elicit from them the things they've already told me on the phone that they want to talk about. And I always reassure them there and when we gather in the front lobby area before a taping that I will not ask them anything that I don't know in advance that they want to talk about. So I don't want to out anybody by putting them on the spot to have to reveal anything too personal unless they've told me that it's okay to tell that story. And so sometimes on the phone, if we're preparing, somebody may tell me something about their background or a personal incident that happened, and I'll say, is that okay to ask you about on the air, or is that just for background, so I know? And almost always they'll say, no, that's okay, you can ask me about that, I'd be happy to tell that story publicly. And then I know it's safe to do that. And I give them another chance when we get to the studio and sit for an hour in the front front lobby for final preparation is, if there's anything that you've told me on the phone that you don't want me to ask about, let me know and I'll scratch it off my list. And I also assure them that I won't be asking them for any factual information that I know they don't already have. So I don't want to have some guests say, well, what is the population of Ecuador nowadays? You know, if we haven't talked about that. So I don't want them to have to say, I don't know. But it's a friendly enough format that we create for the program that a guest could space out on some fact that they knew and say, I'm spacing out on that right now. And maybe the other guests can fill that in. And with a friendly format, you can do that. Whereas in an adversarial show, you don't want to admit any kind of weakness. So this is part of the making people feel comfortable. So part of number 3 above is to keep good records. Part of respecting your crew and yourself and even your talent is to keep good records of things you might need, such as the lighting patterns that worked well. So we all know that over there in the corner is the panel where you can switch the lights, and there's all kinds of lights up here, and depending on where and how you're set up for what you're going to do, you're going to want the lights different. But if you have the same format for your show, time after time after time, you'll know what lighting is good. Write down the letter and number codes for the lights, and note if you have to have the barn doors open on the fixtures, or if there's a diffuser or something. So you have your notes, and then it'll save you a whole bunch of time next time and the time after. And you'll be able to set the lights in a way that you already know will work for you, and not have to do trial and error and waste a bunch of time. If there's information, content information, if you have names and phone numbers and email addresses and websites and things for your guests, or for whoever your talent is, or for whatever you're going to be working with in the substance of the program, keep records of that. So if you ever need to contact them again, maybe 2 years from now you want to do a follow-up on that topic, and you want to go back to these good sources of information and those good reference points, you can contact them again and say, would you like to do another program on this topic, or is there somebody you can recommend who would be good? And I have this over and over again because I'm always working on peace and justice issues and so forth, and very often I'll want to contact somebody from a group that we had talking about nuclear weapons 5 years ago, and I can just go back in my records and find the phone number, and I did that just a couple days ago. I called the guy up, and I had the phone number, and we knew who each other was, and we could just take it on from there. Yeah, TCTV as an organizational culture has a good warm heart to it. It's real people that you enjoy interacting with. And as producers, we can carry that on as well and help to strengthen the TCTV family. So the work that we do can be good for the station here, as well as good for the individuals involved or the nonprofit groups that we work with and so forth. Yeah, I often will email after the production is done. I'll often email people when I get home that night or first thing the next morning and say, thank you for being a guest. It came out well. We felt happy with how it came out at the end of the taping, and I'm still happy with it. And you know, and then when we have a link, Dennis Mills, the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation's webmaster, who's also often on our TV crew, will provide a link so that it'll go onto the Olympia FOR's website, and I can say, here's a link if you want to post this link to, you know, your organization's website, or if you want to watch it. So yeah, we want to keep people, if you think of how, like, in a hive of bees, they all interact and communicate. They're always in very close touch with each other. It's your hug phenomenon. And so the more we can interact in a warmly human way, the better results we can produce. And not just in a technical way, but in a human way as well. The final point on this page is about follow-up. It says immediately after the production, ask each crew member how they thought it went, what went well, what could be improved for later productions, and also listen for feedback, including subtle feedback from the talent or other people who had an involvement in it, or later from people who heard the program, watched the program. There may be something that was subtle that you didn't notice, but somebody may say, you know, when I watched the show, I was troubled by blah, blah, blah. Or, boy, I thought it was especially cool that you had da-da-da-da-da-da, or whatever. So be aware of listening for feedback both that evening from crew, from talent, from anybody, and also subsequently, if any feedback, and not all feedback is valid, but much of it is stuff that we can learn from and find ways to improve for the future. Yeah, so we have that on here. Keep it simple, stupid, KISS, the KISS principle, and figure out what works, as you said. And something that I had mentioned that's earlier in this session here that relates to the figure out what works and sort of relates to this is if you can do enough preparation in advance, you can make things happen in real time as long as people are coordinated and the control room knows what to expect and everything. And my goal has always been that by the time we finish the taping, it's done, it's in the can, it's ready to go. And we don't need to do post-production because all the people we work with are really busy and I don't want to dump workload on them. So if we can prepare thoroughly in advance and everything is all ready so that when it's done, that's kind of a keep it simple thing because the preparation is something that I've done in advance and I don't need to dump workload onto other folks. We often do need a little bit of post-production, but. So I just wrote down form follows function. And this goes back to something we said earlier about what is it you're trying to accomplish? And because if you know what you're trying to accomplish, then you can design the format, you can design the options, you can design everything around it. So the form of your program is going to follow the function. A magazine format, like you're doing, is inherently going to entail different production activities than having some talking heads sitting in adjacent chairs. So, yeah, so just be mindful of what you're trying to do and then how to do that best. Anything else on this, on follow-up or this kind of thing? Yeah, so anything that you can do in advance, for example, things involving TCTV staff, if there's anything that they need to preset, store into their hard drive on the new equipment, do all that in advance, have your own plans thought out well enough, budget your time, so you know you can get things done in the time that you have available and not finish your hour and say, holy crap, we got a third of our questions that we haven't even gotten into yet, you know. So, yeah, because that tends to happen. Anything else? Okay, so far so good. I know we're running tight on time for the production here, but I want to go through a few things here about interview programs, and this is also if you turn the page on your next thing. So the questions become 1A and 1B are why do you want to interview guests and why would a guest want to be interviewed? And there's probably some overlap there. So anybody who, whether or not you've done an interview on TV or not, you may have some ideas about that. Why would you want to interview guests and why would a guest want to be interviewed?
I have not a clue because my interviewer and interviewee just kind of show up as a surprise and said, hi, we're having this, here's the people we're interviewing tonight. That's okay, which gets me into my post-production process.
Ah.
So you spend 90% of your time doing all the pre-production process.
It's dozens of hours of preparation.
Where my pre-production is she walks in, Eileen walks in the door and she's got a little gaggle behind her and that's my interviewees for that night and it's like, surprise.
Oh, you do your thing with Eileen McKenzie Sullivan.
Yeah, so it's a surprise. It's like how many people we're gonna have and how many people we're gonna set up for. And it's like, and then I'm scrambling in post-production like you are with your magazine show. I'm scrambling in post-production to come up with all the stuff to put with it.
Yeah.
To try and figure out, okay, now she's interviewed him, now what can I do to make this compete with the Muppets?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there some way that you could either save time or produce a more satisfying program if there was some preparation in advance?
My preparation is pretty much equipment and setting that stuff up. I run in 3 modes. One is the studio shoot, where we set up the equipment, and I'm working on a grid where we use that for the interviews.
Yeah.
And we design the lights that feed it. And then it's a kind of a scramble, like we had somebody walk in the other night and they said, oh, we're gonna do a music piece with him. And I'm going like, a music piece? He goes stand with the guitar, and they're like, green screen it. Solves my whole problem. I don't have to worry about a background for him or anything like that. So I can do that in post-production. So there's something green screening over here. But then my second setup is field production, but it's like when they're doing a show somewhere at the senior center, they're doing a 40th anniversary or something like that, where I'm setting up 4 or 5 cameras to do it, and then I'm kind of bringing it back to put it together. It's a studio shoot, but it's really just done in the field where I'm doing multi-camera work. And then there's the interview where I'm doing 1 or 2 people because we can't get them to come in, and that's just simple little, some flip cams, some GoPros, and a couple, lights that really just fit in this bag right here with a couple mic stands, and I go out and the equipment is just good cameras and some good recording equipment to get good voices, and then it's put together, and afterwards the post-production.
Okay, the TV production of this workshop is wrapping up because of time constraints, but we want to thank anybody thank all the folks who are here, thank anybody who's watching this after the fact, and then we can stick around and talk further on the remaining things as long
But
as
I like the interview because that gives me some insight into it, because I need to
Yeah.
follow it.
So we can wrap up this production as far as the TCTV taping of it, and then just continue here
Well,
with
Glenn, I did have a comment on items 1A and B.
Oh, good.
And, I am blessed in my friends and my business acquaintances, and the reason I would want to interview someone is because they're interesting, they are doing something worthwhile, they look good, and they know how to be interviewed. And when you know people who are like that, you might want to let them rise to the top of your list of people to interview.
Yeah.
And they want to be interviewed because they are trying to create a movement in the community, or they are trying to share ideas. They are trying to create interest in some creative project. And when you interview them, you're supporting their interest as well as your own.
Yeah. Lori, you have your idea for interviewing some folks, and that sounds like an interesting approach. Tell us what you want to do.
Oh, well, I'd like to interview seniors who have been in long-term committed relationships and get some of their oral history.
And what's the value of doing that? Why would that be worth doing?
Well, for people who are having challenges in their marriages or something, or people that are just starting out and looking ahead and seeing what life is like. It's just, it's a perspective that people can appreciate.
Yeah. So it sounds like an interesting focus that would be really unique.
Oh, good.
I don't know of another program like that. Maybe there are someplace, but that sounds good. How 1C here is, how can you make it more likely that someone will accept your invitation to be a TV guest? For those who are not self-nominated, but when you contact somebody and say, hey, I'm doing a program about such and such, would you be a guest?
I don't know what to tell you, Glenn, because I invited 7 people and 6 came.
Whoa.
And the one who didn't was out of town. I think people are eager to participate in this kind of thing. Especially, I think, I've showed people some other videos I had produced. And when they saw that, they knew I was going to make them look good.
Okay.
And they also knew that I was only asking for a small slice of their time to come and do it. It worked. Didn't take a lot of selling.
Yeah.